quiet work tonight. I don't know.
Can they hear us?
Welcome to the 14th just want to make sure with our mask that everyone can hear us well enough.
Can't really hear you.
In the nose.
Troubleshooting.
Yeah. Can you hear anything?
You turned up?
How about now?
Guys pull your, if the hold when I talk like this close.
On their end.
Is it the loudest you get?
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell her it's muffled.
It is.
All right, you guys, we just want to make sure.
Easy.
Is
Yeah.
that better for anyone?
A little bit.
Make sure you have the computers all the way up as well.
You change. I know how to do it on like a desktop.
How is this better?
Yes.
Yes.
We figured it out, you guys.
Better.
Is that good?
Well, welcome to part 5 of Quarantine Kitchen. We're very excited about hosting this, and just a reminder, we will mute everyone, and then if you have any questions, please type out your questions in the chat, and then you can ask any wine questions, food questions, winery questions, team questions throughout the whole thing. Today we'll be drinking our Chardonnay along with the baked rigatoni. So feel free to open that up and start drinking, but yeah,
There we go.
that's it.
Sounds good.
Yes, mother.
So first thing first, we need to get a pot of water on for the pasta. So if you're cooking along, just a big pot that's big enough to hold a pound of pasta. Get that on high so it's ready in a minute when we start cooking. Chris, can you tell us about the wine?
Yeah, so our feature wine is estate Chardonnay.
Speak up, bro.
It's all estate grown right here on the property. All Russian River Valley fruit.
I do have it.
It's 10 months barrel aged French oak and 40% new oak and 60% neutral oak. It's a really well balanced Chardonnay, not over the top, a little bit light, but it's gonna go great with our rigatoni.
Awesome. So yeah, the baked rigatoni, not your typical like Sopranos red sauce baked ziti. We're doing almost like more like mac and cheese kind of style, but a lot lighter. We're putting a lot of fresh herbs and some lettuces from the garden, a little bit of lemon zest to kind of cut through that. But there's a lot of cheese in it, so that should pair really nicely with the Chardonnay. Most of this one, there's not a ton of prep like the last week's, so just kind of going over the ingredients I have out here. I already said we got the pasta water going. We got some Parmesan, about 1.5 cups of Parmesan, about a cup of shredded white cheddar. Anything kind of sharp is going to be good, like dried jack would be nice. Fontina, it's really whatever your tastes are. About a cup of that. We got a lemon that we're gonna zest. We got some butter, some flour, a little bit of ricotta, And then shallots, you're gonna need 2 shallots for this. We're gonna use 1 for the sauce for the pasta, and then we're gonna use 1 for our vinaigrette for the salad later on. Yeah, so I guess we can start getting some of our mise en place ready. Oh, and then supplies. Yeah, so we're gonna need a couple bowls. So a small one to make the vinaigrette later on. I've got like a medium one down in the fridge with my greens in it for when it's time to dress the salad. And then a bigger one that we're gonna use to get all of the pasta ingredients in. After the pasta's cooked, we're gonna mix everything in here before we put it into our baking dish. And then baking dish, we're doing like a 13 by 9 Pyrex, whatever you got. You know, if it's a little bit smaller, it's just gonna be a little bit thicker. Might take a little bit longer in the oven, but we'll kind of talk about that when we get there. Oven. What's up? Don't call for 1 shot. Cool. We'll use half and half then. That's totally fine. Gruyere would totally work, Perry.
475 degrees.
Yeah. So oven should be turned on to 475. We don't have a broiler, so you guys probably have a leg up on us because it's going to really benefit from a little broil at the end. So we're going to keep ours a little bit longer than what if you have a broiler at home. We're going to do about 15 minutes in the oven once we get going. Yeah, I just addressed that. Yeah, I see the recipe only called for 1 shallot. That's totally fine. We can just use half for the sauce and then half for the vinaigrette later on. So first things first, we're gonna cut our shallot. So we got peeled shallots because that's all that we could find. Don't ever buy peeled shallots; they suck. It's just as soon as you cut them, like the machines they use for these, as soon as you cut it, it starts to oxidize. It just changes the flavor big time. So you always want to use fresh shallots. Same goes for garlic. If you get the pre-peeled garlic, I highly recommend just getting the garlic whole. The quality is just way better. So we're gonna cut this in half, like kind of top to bottom. And if you're using a proper shallot, go ahead and peel it. But we're just gonna mince this up. So we're gonna take 1 cut into the shallot, about halfway up, and that's gonna go about like 90% of the way back, just so you're not cut all the way through. So you should have like a little Pac-Man shallot.
Like a mouth?
Yeah, totally. Nailed it. And then we're gonna make some cuts down into it. Again, going like 95% of the way back, not cutting all the way through the shallot.
How close to get
As close as you can get them, as close as you're comfortable with. I'd say the closer the better, but you know, like 1/4 inch is fine. It's just gonna help us make the dice. Cool. So now we're gonna take this and cut across as fine as we can. And so you should have this like nice, perfect little brunoise, we call it. Just a nice, fine, small dice. All right. So if you have just 1 shallot, use half now. We'll save the other half for later. But actually, we can dice it all up now. It doesn't really matter because they're going to be the same preparation. So do the same thing to the other half that we haven't used yet. Again, making 1 horizontal cut almost all the way through, and then going across that down.
I bet it doesn't say.
And chopping across. Can't tell you guys how fun it is cooking in a mask. I'm like already dripping sweat under here.
I won't do a close up of that.
Yeah, no.
Just because you're competing with me.
All right, so we can put that into our container. We're gonna use this shortly. Other tools we're gonna need is some sort of zester. We have a nice microplane. We're gonna need a whisk. We've got that on the back, a whisk and a spatula. Yeah, so we can go ahead and now we're gonna zest our lemon. So like I said, we're gonna use this microplane, which is really nice for making nice fine lemon zest. If you don't have one of these, you can use like a vegetable peeler and peel it off, trying only to get the yellow part, and then just chopping that with a knife. If you have like a tunnel knife, like that gets you the strips, just do the strips and then chop those up. But we're just gonna take this and really just kind of go around. You just want the yellow part. You know, we want to try and get as little of the white. The white has a little bitterness to it. So we're just gonna try and get all the zest off of this one lemon, and this is really gonna lighten up our
Doing the whole
our bechamel. Whole lemon. We're not using the juice on this recipe, so you can just, once it's zested, you want to throw it in the fridge. So you can put this in the fridge and use it for cocktails after dinner. And then one of the other ingredients we're using is nutmeg. If you have just ground nutmeg, that's totally fine. We get ours whole. It's just a little bit fresher to grate it fresh every time. So you need, I think I said, what is it, a teaspoon, quarter teaspoon, half a teaspoon? What is it? Pinch. Well, that's not very specific. So yeah, like a pinch. So like, I don't know, like I know. We're gonna do probably like run this nutmeg. I'd say it's probably about a quarter teaspoon if I had to guess. You don't want to overpower it. Go ahead and put that in with your lemon zest. Perfect. Yeah, that's good. All right, so we got our cheese. We got our. We can get our herbs and our asparagus prep. So we're using about a half a bunch of asparagus each. This is just going to get mixed in to the pasta before we bake it. So when you're using asparagus, the ends are going to be super woody, and so like the trick they show you in kitchens is you snap a couple, and you kind of take the average of where it's snapping, because that the rest of that on down is going to be kind of fibrous and woody. So I always do like one or two to see kind of where that line is, and then just cut the rest. And then you can save these for compost, or you can cook these down for soup. Now what we're gonna do is just cut this as thin as we can across. So get them all lined up, and then we're just gonna just as fine as we can. We're not blanching this or pre-cooking it at all. It's gonna get cooked when we throw everything in the oven. Dropping something already, man?
They're running away from me. I don't know what's going on. They're running from something.
Just all the way through. When you get to the tips, you can kind of leave some of the bigger pieces. Those cook a little faster. So we can put that off to the side for a sec.
Brother wants to see Shane on Guy's Grocery.
Yes.
Only if you're my partner, Bradford.
I'm hurt.
I'm sorry. You can come in. You can cheer.
Okay.
You can do it on bias. Totally. Yeah, I think that's what I said to do. And I just didn't do what I said to do. So forgive me. It doesn't really matter as long as it's nice and thin. That's all we're going for. If you have bigger pieces, it's not going to cook in the oven in time. And then we got our fresh herbs. So we're using mint and basil. If you don't have fresh herbs, I really wouldn't recommend dried on this recipe necessarily. It's not gonna have the same effect. So I would just omit it. We're gonna add some of the greens. The arugula is gonna go in it as well. That'll still help lighten it up. Other herbs would be good in this. Just nice, soft, fresh herbs like parsley leaves would have been good. Tarragon would have been great. Chives. We're using mint and basil, so we're just gonna take the leaves off the stems right now.
It's from our property.
What's that?
It's the basil from our property.
Yeah, both of these are from the property. Our gardens are starting Starting to get happy with this 85-degree weather we're having today.
Are you excited?
I'm excited, man.
Looking amazing.
We have like 2 beds of radishes. I got to get creative. We're going to be preserving or pickling a bunch of stuff soon.
Means I have to be healthy.
Yeah.
If we couldn't find mint, can we just use extra basil?
Yep, absolutely. And we're gonna get these all picked, and then I think we'll start cooking our sauce. And then once we get the pasta all done, we didn't mention it earlier, but Perry, our winemaker, is gonna jump on and talk to us about the wine a little bit while we wait for the pasta to bake.
The water's ready. Should we add the pasta?
No, not yet. Once we start cooking the sauce, in just a minute, we'll drop the pasta. We got our herbs, we got our asparagus, we got our shallot. I think we're ready to start cooking. So, yeah, let's go back to the stove. You want to set that up, Sarah?
People forget if you want to drink that. We should tell them.
Yeah, we gotta-
I think you guys have to drink.
Oh yeah.
Come on, James.
Whoa.
Gotta get the toast.
Toast.
Cheers. Cheers.
Hope to see everybody in person.
Not a tricky part.
Yeah.
Oh, yours is easy.
It's easier.
Look at you.
All right, so we're gonna add some salt. Are we good here? Hold on, where am I looking? Camera 6 or camera 4?
I have to admit, we're all much happier without masks drinking our wine here.
What did Mark Hansen say?
They're a lot happier drinking without their masks.
Oh, yeah.
You're good.
We're good? Okay, so we're gonna put some salt. For this size pot, I'm probably doing like, I don't know, half a cup, 3/4 of a cup. You just want it to taste as salty as the ocean. It really,
I like that.
it really is important. If you don't season your water, your pasta's not gonna be seasoned. It'll taste fine, but it's what makes a better pasta dish. So at this point, we can go ahead and put our pasta. If your water is boiling, go ahead and put it in there. And then just, I would set a timer. If it says 11 minutes on the box, I would go 10 minutes because we're gonna bake it. I might even go 9, and just check it along the way. It's gonna cook a lot in the oven too, so it's gonna kind of continue to go. So let's go ahead and drop that.
Gail wanted to know that she said, what can I use as a substitute for the ricotta? She could find it.
You just go a little heavier on the cheese that you're using for the sauce. So if you have a bunch of cheddar or jack or whatever, little Parmesan, just go heavier on that. When we start assembling it, the ricotta is part of the assembly. So I'll talk to you about that when we get there. So I'm gonna set a timer. Ours took about 8 minutes the other day, so we'll set a timer for that. And then we have our pan. So pan or a pot, these are pretty hot, big.
Jill said Chad wants to know, where does the flour go? In with the pasta or?
No,
with
just the
sauce?
pasta is just in the water.
But is there flour?
Yeah, that's gonna be yeah. The flour's gonna go in right now. So we're gonna turn our pan. It needs to be big enough for I think it's like a quart of milk, 4 cups of milk that we're using for this recipe. So just make sure whatever you're using is big enough. It doesn't need to be big enough to hold the pasta. The pasta is not gonna go in this pan. We're gonna mix everything in a bowl. So the first thing we're gonna do is our 1/4 cup of butter. It's gonna go in the pan with our shallots that we minced up. So we're gonna do, this was the shallot we cut up. We're only gonna use about half of it. So don't put all your shallot in there. You're just using about half because we're gonna use the rest for our vinaigrette. We're gonna add a pinch of salt and a little bit of cracked pepper.
Someone also said they couldn't find unsalted butter. Is salted okay?
Yeah, it's totally fine. I would just wait on the final seasoning. Once we get all the milk and cheese in here, we're gonna season it with some salt to taste. I would just maybe put a little bit less than what I'm gonna tell you because your butter is gonna add a little bit of salt that ours does not have. So we're just looking for those shallots to get kind of translucent. It's Shouldn't take too long. We cut it up super small. So we're almost there. Next thing we're going to do is add our flour here in just a second. And that's going to create a roux, which is just a classic thickener. So that's just going to make our sauce a sauce. Hey, Joe, back in the back of this big colander. Can you grab that and put it over here? Like this. Yeah, so that's starting to look good. You can see they're starting to cook down a little bit. Now we're going to get our whisk handy. You have a whisk. We're going to add the flour. Stir it around. Quarter cup of flour. Whenever you're making a roux, it's going to be equal parts butter and flour. Like I said, this is going to thicken up our sauce.
You're dumping it all.
Yeah. Yeah, that was important. Yeah. Cool. So we don't really need to cook this too much. We just, you know, some other recipes, you're gonna cook your roux until it starts to develop a little color, and that's not what we're going for here. This is gonna be a white sauce, so we don't need any color. So the next thing that's going in.
Can you just say how much flour again?
Quarter cup flour. There's a quarter cup of butter. We had half of our shallot, a little bit of salt, a little bit of black pepper so far. Next thing in is going to be 4 cups of milk. We're going to put it in stages. So we're going to add maybe about a cup in there, and then whisk and let that kind of come up to heat. The way the roux works is once this comes up to a simmer, you're going to see it start to thicken. If you put it all in at once, you have more of a tendency for the sauce to want to get lumpy. So we put a little bit, let that get thick, and then we add the rest. And that helps us avoid lumps in our sauce.
People want to know if you've been on Top Chef.
I have not. I have the mohawk for it though. It's getting a little unruly. This might be one of the last mohawk weeks we have of quarantine kitchen. So you can see it's super thick. We only put about a quarter of our moisture in, or of our milk in. So it's thick, and that's great because that allows us to get all the lumps out. So now we're going to go ahead and add the rest of our milk.
Are there any hairstyles you guys want to see on Shane? He's
Oh,
gonna
man.
be getting rid of the mohawk.
Let's hear it.
Should we dye it?
Ooh, that'd be nice.
I was thinking cornrows.
Oh,
Come on.
oh no.
A cornrow? Dreadlock?
Just down the middle?
Yeah, just one dreadlock.
I don't know. I think the mullet.
Should we do hot pink?
Oh, man. It's been done in the past. so
Lily would like it.
She would like that.
Top part of the back.
Yeah, hey.
You nervous?
I am. So at this point, you want to whisk it pretty frequently. We've got our heat at about medium right now. You just want to, you really want to be mindful to not have it stick to the bottom. It'll definitely want to. So you don't have to continuously whisk it, but like every minute or so, as it comes up to temperature, we're gonna give it a little whisk, just to avoid any scorching.
The butler thinks that you should do Marco Pierre white.
Oh, that's sexy. I like that.
Brad and Jess said any of the village people will wear.
That's awesome. I like the Marco Pierre white. That's a good call. So now we're gonna add some of our seasoning in here. So we have the lemon zest and the nutmeg that we prepped already. That's gonna go ahead and go in here. Like I said earlier, this is just really gonna, you know, a dish like this can really become just like a gut bomb really easily with all the cheese and how thick the sauce is. So we're trying to add these fresh herbs and this lemon zest and kind of just lighten that up a little bit.
And yes, Simon, we did add all the milk.
All the milk is in. We just added the lemon zest. We had the nutmeg. Okay. And then our pasta's going. I got about a minute left on ours, but we'll slow down here. So all we're trying to do is get this sauce to come up to come up to a simmer. Once it comes up to a simmer, it thickens up. Then we can kill the heat. We're gonna add our cheese, and then we're gonna add an egg once it cools down a little bit, and that's gonna help us once we start baking. It'll just help it kind of set up a little bit.
Someone said add both the cheeses.
Not yet, but in a second we are gonna add the Parmesan and the cheddar or Jack, whatever you got. The ricotta is not going in the sauce though. I'm gonna check our pasta. I think it is time to drink.
Yes. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
What temperature do we have the oven at?
475. All right, so you can see our sauce starting to simmer. You can see as it comes up to a simmer, it thickens up a little bit. That's exactly what we want. Cheers up yet? Almost. Cool. Oh, there's the pasta timer. I just tried a piece. It's not quite there. We're gonna let it go another minute or so. So I'm gonna kill the heat on our sauce because it's come up and is where we want it.
Don't worry, guys. Chris's is not there yet.
Yeah.
I'm taking my time. So.
Yeah, Chris is doing great, Chris.
I better eat.
I know, man. You don't have any fire on your hands.
You told me to stop.
Well, no, you weren't up yet.
But, I mean, you told me to stop.
Oh, man.
You told me to kill it.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah. You're setting me up for disaster again.
Again. It's not
You
it's
raked
me.
my burner last week. You're doing it again this week. There you are.
So the consistency of this should be decently thick.
What do you do if the sauce is not thickened too much?
Just,
As it comes up to a simmer, if it comes up to a simmer and we got the same ratio,
Like
it
this?
should be. It's not super thick. Our cheese is going to go in here, and that's going to also thicken the sauce up a little bit as well.
you like mine's coming.
Yeah.
And should the pasta be al dente?
Yes, absolutely. So our pasta is probably done now. So I'm going to shut all of our heats off. Chris, do you want to do the honors and go drain our pasta?
I can do that.
So we got a colander set up in the sink over there. We're just gonna drain them off and then put the pasta into a large mixing bowl.
And do you keep any of the water?
No, for this preparation, you really don't need to keep the water. Like most times when we're cooking pasta, you want to bring the colander with you. A lot of times when we're cooking pastas, a little bit of that pasta water is going to go in the sauce because you get all the starch out of the pasta. But for this, it's really not a necessity.
And then did the oregano go into the sauce yet?
No, the oregano is for the salad dressing later on.
And what should the consistency of the pasta be when you pour out the water?
The pasta should be just slightly undercooked because it's going to go in the oven for 15 minutes. So a little al dente at this point. Like I said, I would do like 1 minute less than what the box had recommended. A little bit of bite, and it's all going to kind of go away once we bake it with this sauce on it. So now we can put our cheese in. Good. We'll wait for Christopher.
Is everyone ready for cheese? How's your sauce?
Is everybody's sauce come up to a simmer? It's not super thick right now. Like you can see in here, it's thickened, but not like.
I don't think people are ready yet.
Okay, that's totally fine.
Do you have a spoon so we can see what the?
Yeah, good call.
Yeah.
So it definitely coats it, but I mean if you look at it in the spoon, it's like a little thinner than like chowder, right? The cheese that we add into that is really going to thicken it up, and then the egg and the baking process also helps with the thickness.
Simon says his sauce is not simmering yet. John's not ready yet
It's
either.
going to go in the bowls. Yeah.
can see Chris's consistency.
Everybody drinking the Chardonnay right now? That's another important step we haven't talked about.
Joe, we have not put the cheese in yet.
We're hanging out for a second.
Your mother would like to know if you made the pasta.
Yeah, we did make this pasta. Well, Country made this pasta. Our sous chef here, he was making pasta for most of today.
Is the skillet heat medium fire?
Huh?
Is the skillet
Medium fire.
medium fire?
Yeah, medium heat while it comes up to a simmer.
And yes, Rachel, you should drain the pasta if it's ready.
And then we got our pasta in the bowl, and we're just going to mix everything in there with it. So we're going to set this off to the side. All right, you want to grab your cheese. So for the cheese we have going in here, it's going to be the cheddar or jack, whatever you went with, or fontina or gruyere, and Parmesan. We've got 1.5 cups of Parmesan. We're only going to use 1 cup of Parmesan for the sauce, and the rest we're going to use to put on top of the pasta once it's in the baking dish. So we're going to go ahead and go with this is our, we're using jack. I just like the sharpness, and it's not, not too big of a flavor. Cheddar is a great option, like a white cheddar is really good. Orange cheddar, if that's all you can find. Just whisking this in. You can see that's starting to thicken up our sauce for sure. The Parmesan, we're going to put about, this is 1.5 cups we have in here. We're going to do about 1 cup into the sauce. And we'll save the rest for putting it on top of the pasta once we bake it. So you can see it's definitely starting to thicken up. Has a little bit like a fondue type look.
Had fondue last weekend.
Oh yeah?
Yeah,
Nice.
fondue for one. It was that type of day.
So the last thing we're going to put in here.
When do you put in the basil? And did you put all the sharp cheddar in?
Yes, I did. All the cheddar's in there. About 1 cup of our Parmesan's in there. All the herbs are going to go in once we start mixing in the bowl.
Rachel said, "Oops, I put all the parmesan."
It's okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Extra
cheesy is great, you
Just
know.
want to save some for the end. That was it. So
Yeah, it was
topic
just
for the
gonna
top
be like a
part.
garnish, yeah. So now we have an egg. We're gonna add an egg in here. So mine's been off heat for a second. If yours is just coming up to heat, I would wait a second to add your egg. You don't want to scramble it. What this is gonna do when we bake the pasta, it's gonna kind of help it all set together. So we're gonna go ahead and crack it in there.
And the basil is not in.
No herbs are in here yet.
Yeah.
Whisk that in.
If they don't have basil, do they still add the mint?
Not yet.
No, later though.
Yeah.
Yep. Heidi, don't add your mint yet, but you'll add it later.
Okay, so I think for the next part we should probably go back to the other side. Yeah, so we're gonna assemble this over on the other cutting board, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers. You can hear it.
Our camera is paused. Are you guys paused? Or is it just, okay, cool.
Just keep drinking.
Yeah, we're drinking.
That's my solution.
Yeah.
Just keep drinking.
Keep drinking.
We are too.
It's
All
week
right.
5. You think we have all the bugs ironed
I
out?
might be frozen, but I'm there. Don't worry, I'm drinking.
Is everybody up to speed with the sauce? Or our sauces are done. We got the egg in there.
Keep drinking until I tell you to stop. Okay, we're back.
We're getting there.
We're good. Good.
Back?
Are we good?
Yes.
I just need to go over there. We don't have our second.
It's like clockwork.
Yeah.
We lost a cameraman.
Yeah, we lost the cameraman today.
Not to the virus.
Hey.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're good. Is this true?
Yeah.
Okay. So our bowl right now just has our pasta. We're gonna add our sauce into that we just made.
Okay, we have a couple questions.
Yep.
Should we chop the herbs?
No.
No.
No. Okay, would you use an egg even if you were not going to make the sauce or pasta?
Yeah, probably. No, I probably wouldn't. Just keep it out if you're not gonna bake it. So the purpose is to help us thicken it as it bakes.
So you put all the sauce in, right?
Yes, sir.
How do you know the egg won't scramble?
You just gotta whisk it fast, and like I said, ours had been off the heat for about 4 minutes, and that cheese kind of cooled it down a little bit. Yeah, if your sauce is still at a simmer, I would wait a second to add the egg. Now we're gonna kind of mix it about. The
Get
one,
rid of that sauce.
yeah, the one thing we forgot to do was taste the sauce for seasoning. So I'm gonna do that right now because we didn't have any salt in there. It's just the salt. So that definitely needs a little bit of salt. I'm gonna add, say, probably like a teaspoon in there.
I love your teaspoon. It's
Yeah.
like 5 teaspoons.
A teaspoon is a handful.
No.
James teaspoon.
I put
Like,
enough.
just grab
I
a
put
bone,
enough.
just dump it in.
Yeah.
All right. So now we're gonna put our herbs in here. So like soft herbs like basil and mint, I'm not a huge fan of chopping them.
Wow.
It bruises them up. And so all we're gonna do is just kind of take some of the basil, tear it in thirds, leave it nice and big. It's gonna add that freshness to it. We're gonna put most of our herbs in here, but we're gonna save a few leaves of each to mix into our salad, and that's just gonna kind of tie the two components together. So, we're getting like maybe 8-10 leaves each in this part of the dish, and then we'll add a little bit into the salad as well. So we're mixing that in, and then the other thing that's gonna go in here that's really gonna help lighten it up is the arugula. So if you don't have arugula, spinach would be great. We're actually not using arugula. We're using, we got a bunch of really nice mustard greens that are starting to come out of our garden. So it's any sort of spicy green is what I would recommend. I think the mustard greens are awesome. Arugula is great.
Spicy green.
What's that?
What's the definition of a spicy green?
Just something kind of peppery, right? Like, so these are all mustard. So when you bite them, it has kind of like that horseradish kind of kick to it. Arugula, same thing. When arugula is raw, it has a little peppery note. So like watercress would be good. If you can only find spinach would be great. I wouldn't put like mixed greens because those are just going to kind of wilt and not really add anything to this. So yeah, I recommended you buy 2 clamshells of arugula. I'd use about half of one here, and then the rest will all just go towards the salad. So we're going to take, about a solid, nice handful. We're just going to tear that in half. Again, not cutting it. If you cut it, it's going to get bruised up. We just want to kind of be rustic. If you got arugula that's small, like the baby wild arugula, I would even say leave that whole. Just mix it in. Yeah.
What about the ricotta?
The ricotta is going to go on once we put it in the baking dish, which we're going to do next. So this is all dressed, ready to go into our Pyrex. Put our salad down for later. So we can bring the baking dish over. Yeah, that looks good. Put salt in there?
Of course I did.
All right.
The 5 tablespoons.
5 tablespoons. That would not be healthy.
I just follow your lead, man. You must have big fingers. One little tablespoon. I don't know.
All right, so now we're just going to put this in an even layer in our baking dish. Like so. Making sure we get all the sauce out of there.
Asparagus question mark?
Thank you. So that was a test.
This is live, people.
Chris's one job was to remind me to put the asparagus
Oh,
in.
is that on my to-do list?
Yeah.
Who called it out?
It was. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
So the asparagus is
should
going
have
to
Joe
go in.
cooking.
What's that?
We should have Joe cooking.
I know. I think that's a good call.
Man.
And chef, mint and basil.
Mint and basil are both in there. The arugula is in
Are you
there.
sure back on?
Yeah. We all make mistakes, man. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So asparagus, again, it's raw. We just chopped that up earlier. That's going to get folded in.
Make it seem like we're rookies here.
I know.
You would think that this is our first one.
I know, man. I think we're on such a roll. We're on such a roll, and then just the wheels fell off in week 5. If you don't have asparagus, or if you want to make this during different times of the year, because I would only recommend eating asparagus when it's in season locally, like it is now. But in like the summertime, some English peas would be great in here. In the fall, you could throw some delicata squash or some butternut squash in there. It's a pretty versatile recipe. So now take 2. We're gonna put the pasta.
If you did butternut squash in the fall, would you?
You would roast that first, yeah. For sure. Yeah, I'm having deja vu. I think we already did this stuff. Am I frustrating you, Chris?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, now the ricotta.
You're the professional. Remember that.
This is what happens when you can't drink and cook.
I know. See, it's a drinking. Before we would have those toasts all the time. Now we just can't.
I know. It's like too serious now. There's pressure and everything. Okay, so now we have this in here like so. We're going to take our ricotta, about a cup. And with this, we're going to, 2 spoons works great. If you have like a little mini ice cream scoop, that's cool too. We're just going to get a scoop and we're going to add little pillows of this onto the top. That'll be really nice once it gets baked.
Say pillows.
Pillows. Thank you. So just kind of dotting it, like I think we'll probably get like 8 or 10 spots around.
Did you grease the dish?
I didn't. The sauce shouldn't stick. We made this earlier in the week, and I didn't put any oil in it or anything, and it came out just fine.
How much arugula?
That was so the recipe I gave you guys was to buy 2 of the containers from the store. I think those are 5 ounces. So we put like the equivalent of half of one of those, like 2.5 ounces. And then all the rest of the arugula will go towards our salad. Yeah, so for the size dish I have here, I think we're gonna get about 8 little dollops or so. And then we're gonna take the remaining Parmesan, not quite all of it. If you want to do just a sprinkle over the top, maybe like a, I don't know, is that like a
5 tablespoons.
Yeah, like 2 tablespoons of Parmesan. And we can save the rest if we want to put on our salad at the end too. So that's what we have now. Now it's ready for the oven. We're gonna go in the oven. Like I said, ours is at 475. We don't have a broiler, so ours might take a little bit longer. I would highly recommend, like at the end, like when the 15 minutes is up, turn your broiler on if you have one, and hit it in the broiler for about like a minute or 2, just to kind of get that golden brown crust. It really will just kind of take it to the next level. So let's go ahead and drop this in our oven. I'm gonna set myself a timer for 15 minutes.
Can you just clarify for Gail the arugula again?
What does 2.5 ounces take? 2 handfuls?
Yeah, 2 hands. Like it was a heavy portion, so I'd say like, you know, like a cup maybe, something like that. And we just tore that in half and just added it to our pasta. So we're setting ourselves a timer so we don't burn it.
So is there a difference? Bottom rack, top rack, middle rack?
I would go middle, and especially once you get that broiler on. If you're on that top rack, it has less margin for air. It's a lot easier to burn stuff.
So middle rack.
Middle rack. So we got our timer going. This is gonna take about 15 minutes. I think Carrie's gonna come on and talk to us about wine, and then when we get back from Carrie, we'll make our salad, and then the pasta should be coming out, and we should be pretty good to go.
Cool.
Before we switch to Carrie, does anybody have any questions? Is anyone a little behind? So we can answer them before Carrie starts talking.
Or if I miss anything, because I've already missed one thing.
Are we good? Thumbs up? Oh. What does a mint add to the dish?
Just like a freshness. Like if we didn't have the fresh herbs and the arugula in here, it would be a lot heavier. This dish is surprisingly light, given it's a bechamel with a ton of cheese. I think the mint, like any of those soft herbs, like I said, like we're doing mint and basil, tarragon, parsley, chives. Any of that would have been really good additions as well. Just kind of cut through and make it taste like we're not eating 1,000 calories.
Cool.
Cool.
Okay, we're gonna switch over to Carrie.
Go for it, Carrie.
Hey, hello everyone. How you doing?
How are you?
Yeah, good. So I'm sitting outside. We're going to do a little look at the vineyard where we are right now. How do we go from the vineyard to, let's see if we can find the wine bottle and the wine. So where we are, thank God spring is hit, and everywhere that need to be pulled off by hand. We call it suckering. But if you look at, these are the vines at my home. So we are fully in growth. So like 2 weeks ago, the growth was probably that long. And so now we're growing like crazy. And what you see when you look at the vines is that you have all kinds of growth. There's way too much sorry for the moving computer, too much growth down here, which we come in and move. I don't know if you can see, this is a little flower cluster that will turn into a grape cluster. So in this little valley that I live in, everything is green. So at this time of year, when we sit outside, we live in Greenland. The vines have been irrigated once this spring, and we put a very healthful bacteria and fungus related supplement on the vines that go into the roots, that really help the roots be very healthful and transferring from the soil into the vines. So we are today we got up to maybe 85 degrees. Enough time for a bike ride, enough time for, just sort of enjoying being stuck at home. But the object that we're trying to do at this time of year is we have a lot of handwork to do in the vineyards. So the vineyards where the Bricoleur Chardonnay comes from is just really right outside the kitchen. Those guys could take 15 steps and be in the Chardonnay. So what we're trying to do is go from grapes, which we won't pick these grapes at Bricoleur until the middle or late of September. We tried, I showed you a couple weeks ago for the unoaked Chardonnay, the little device that we use to tell us how sweet the grapes are. We're really going for flavor, but we want the percent of sugar in the grapes to be around 25%. We pick them, the grapes go directly, you've seen these photos before, they go directly to the press, which this doesn't work too well, goes to a press and we get juice, and from that juice, we go directly to barrels. And this is what the juice looks like once we get it out of the press. And we then add yeast to the juice, and it ferments in the barrel for 3 or 4 weeks. And then it goes dry. All the sugar is converted to alcohol, carbon dioxide, and heat. We get a lot of flavor out of the barrels, and we have a very specific group of coopers that we use to ferment the wine in, and we let it ferment. It goes dry. We then have a malolactic fermentation, which is a bacterial fermentation that happens in the wine where, just as the name says, it takes malic acid and turns it into lactic acid. Very natural process, all done by bacteria that comes into the wine naturally. And that completes, and then once that's done, we fill the barrels all the way up to the top. We add a teeny amount of sulfur dioxide.
Hi, David. Do you have any sound? I have no sound.
Can anybody hear me?
You do? Oh, then maybe it's my Zoom. Okay. Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay. So, and then we ferment, and so we age for about another 8 or 9 months, maybe 10 months. And every couple months or every couple weeks, we come in and we stir the dying and dead yeast cells that are in the bottom of the barrel, which we call lees. They come back up into the wine, and that adds a lot of texture and style to the wine. This wine was bottled right after the harvest of the following year. So that makes the time that the wine was in barrel slightly more than 1 year. And we bottle it, and it goes to you. So it's a fun process to do. At this time of year, we're dealing with, we had a very warm and no rain February, and then we had kind of a strange March. The vines actually got behind in their normal pattern, and now all of a sudden, starting 3 days ago, we're in spring. As you can see behind me, everything is green. I live in Greenland, and all of that is the trees here, the vineyards that you can see right there. Everything is just growing like crazy. And so now we have a huge amount of work to do in the vineyards, and it's all handwork. But we're glad that spring is here. Right now it looks like we could have a decent sized crop. We've got a lot of weather and a lot of events to go through from here. But right now, sorry for the glasses, things look good. Happy from the vineyards, and I hope everybody is making the rigatoni and will be happy eating it tonight. We're having it for dinner also. So Sarah, it's back to you.
Yeah, Carrie, there's actually a question.
Yes.
Someone wants to know the sulfur dioxide. How important is it, and where is it sourced?
Great question.
Wow.
Well, it's natural sulfur dioxide, which is a chemical. It comes from potassium metabisulfide, and we add like 15 parts per million, which is a very small amount. If you didn't use sulfur dioxide, you can't make wine. So it is one of the natural. Actually, fermentation by itself, wine makes sulfur dioxide. It's just not quite enough to protect the wine from spoiling. So all we're trying to do is get it from juice to wine. And if you don't have a very small amount of sulfur dioxide, which we add very small amounts, it's going to go, the wine will go off and it won't be drinkable. So it is one of the tools that have been used for thousands of years in winemaking. We have learned to use a dramatically less that's been than was done 40, 50 years ago. So it's a preservative so that the wine becomes good. And then the wine that you're drinking, the 2018, the amount of free sulfur dioxide that's in it right now is probably like 2 or 3 parts per million. You couldn't notice, you can't taste it, you can't see it. So
Cool.
I'll be looking at it.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you, Carrie.
I like your shirt.
Enjoy the wine.
Beautiful hat too.
Yeah, thank you. go.
Cheers. Cheers,
Cheers,
Terry.
Terry. Thank you. Okay.
All right. So we got about 5 minutes left on our timer for the pasta. Are we back? Okay, cool. So we're gonna make
How about a toast?
toast. Cheers.
What was the name of the 2018 wine you toasted?
What was the name of it?
Yeah.
It's our 2018 Estate Chardonnay.
So in a medium bowl, whatever arugula or greens you're using that you got left, should be like a little more than about a container and a half. We're gonna add to that any herbs you had left. So we had a little bit of mint left. We have a little bit of basil. We're just gonna, same way we did it for the pasta, just kind of tear it in there. And this is a really good trick. Fresh herbs.
Just in half?
Yeah, just in half. Smaller ones we're leaving whole. Anytime you're making a salad, like if you have any garden space at home, I would recommend the first thing is to grow some herbs, because they can. It's kind of a pain to buy it in the store because you buy a bunch at a time, and then what are you going to do with it? But if you have a little bit in an herb garden out back, you can just go trim as you need. And adding fresh herbs to a salad just changes it like a lot. Like people don't realize it. Like having, anything in here, like some fresh parsley, some fresh chives. It just elevates the salad a little bit and gives it a little more depth. So we have our greens ready. Now we're going to make our vinaigrette. We have our smaller bowl and our whisk we were using earlier. If you want to give that a quick clean. So we have some reserved shallots from earlier. Those are going to go in. We have a little bit of dry oregano. Half a teaspoon is going to go in here. And this is a really, really basic dressing. But kind of like a nice, go with anything. We're using these spicy greens.
The whole thing?
Yes, sir. We had measured it out. It was half a teaspoon.
Looks like more.
We should
You're
use
good.
teaspoons.
You're good.
Like,
He's
hey.
questioning you.
I know.
I mean, I'm just saying, you
I
got to question the chef sometimes.
man, this is not a restaurant.
Are you sure?
So dry oregano, shallot. What do we say about a teaspoon of Dijon mustard? Are you
Look at
okay?
me because I'm French.
Yeah, Dijon. Yeah. And then we're gonna do a 1/4 cup of red wine vinegar. If you don't have red wine vinegar, sherry would be good. Champagne vinegar would be fine. Good. All right, so we're gonna whisk that in, kind of make like a little paste. And then we're gonna add our olive oil. We're using our Rigatoni Estate. So this is gonna be half a cup of olive oil. So we're gonna start with 1/4. Just whisk it in. It's not gonna perfectly emulsify. We'll have to shake it or whisk it before we dress our salad. Like I said, just super simple. And this is definitely way more than we're gonna need for the salad. So whatever you have left over, just put it in a Tupperware in your fridge, and you can use this as a great, nice simple salad with like butter lettuce or romaine, any kind of crunchy lettuce. This is really nice with.
How long would the dressing last?
Oh, it would last a couple weeks for sure. Yeah, there's nothing super fresh in here. Like we're not putting fresh herbs in here. We're using this dry oregano, so it'll last a little longer. If you put fresh herbs in, it's not going to last as long. All right. Oh. Slow down. Got it.
What I'm trying to do. Supposed to look like this.
Yeah. What is that?
There's a bird attacking the window. It's like a crane. Can I show people?
Yeah.
We have a
You
visitor.
guys, tell them I'm going to show them.
Sarah's going to show you something that is happening outside. I'm not fully in the loop on what's happening.
But we can drink.
Yeah. It appears there's a bird. We got to do play-by-play because Sarah doesn't have audio.
Oh, it's one of those.
Oh, she's scaring it away.
Today.
Is it black?
Oh,
Well-
bye-bye.
That was excellent.
Could have been our protein.
That'll be next week's quarantine kitchen.
Yep. You ever do rabbit?
Oh yeah.
Do you want to talk about what they're seeing right now? Taste
Oh yeah. Talking about.
Oh,
the
you guys
bar.
are seeing the beautiful tasting room that eventually will have you guys someday in it. Gorgeous.
Yeah, it's all set up. With nobody in it.
But soon there will be.
So the timer that went off was my timer for our pasta. Ours looks pretty good right now. Like I said, we don't have a broiler, so I'm gonna leave mine in for a couple more minutes. If you have a broiler in your oven, just click it on. Like 500. I would have it on the second shelf. Don't have it up top. You're gonna burn it. And then just set a timer for like 2 minutes.
So Rhonda's got a really good question.
This is where we add the crane.
Yeah, exactly.
I gotta go catch it real quick.
And it is turning into a quarantine zoo because on Tuesday we're getting 2 swans.
Oh my gosh.
Black swans, right?
Black swans that's going to be living in our pond.
Yeah, we got
and
ducklings, we got
and baby
chicks.
chickens.
We'll have to do an animal
Isabel and
slideshow.
our team's trying to get baby goats.
Miniature donkey. We definitely want a miniature donkey. Anybody has a lead, that's my goal. Okay.
Now. Slow down, you guys.
Sorry, Mark.
If everyone can comment what animals they would like to see.
Yeah, we're gonna do it. We're
Send
gonna
the email to Mark Hansen.
Mark would appreciate it.
we're gonna do a Facebook poll, and you guys tell us what we should get. Tigers are not out of the question.
He just says an octopus.
Ooh, that'd be cool. Calamari.
Rhonda wants to know if we add lemon juice.
No, we're not using lemon juice. So the lemon's gonna stay for another. You guys can make
We're gonna make lemonade tomorrow.
lemonade with that tomorrow.
And then John, we did add the rest of the basil and the mint.
Yeah,
to the salad.
yeah, it's in with our greens. Cool. So now we're just gonna dress this. We're definitely not gonna use all of this. So we'll get a spoon, and it got pretty well emulsified. So let's just use a spoon and put like 1 or 2, 3 spoonfuls in, and we'll dress it. Let me grab tongs real quick.
Jennifer Pastore, yes, we're still trying to capture some cows from next door.
Cool. So you can use your hands to dress this if you'd like. You just want to be really gentle. And I think a common thing people do is overdress. So like we didn't put that much dressing in there. We just wanted enough to really coat the lettuce and really have the flavor of these greens kind of come through. We're gonna season it too with a nice pinch of salt. Not 5 tablespoons, Chris.
Pinch.
And a little bit of cracked pepper. Salad is ready. I think our pasta is probably ready. Let's go ahead and check on that. Oh yeah. You can see it's starting to get a little crust on the top, bubbling all over. Definitely ready. You can probably get it. Yeah, there you go. So, yeah, I guess we can plate up a little serving.
How's everybody doing?
Anybody else have theirs coming out of the oven yet?
Gail, can you just repeat the dressing?
Yeah, shallots were in the dressing. So it was shallots, dry oregano, teaspoon of Dijon mustard, and a quarter cup of red wine vinegar. And then we whisked into that half a cup of our Rigatoni Estate olive oil. It's not really good.
I'll let you do the honors.
Oh,
you
thanks,
you
man.
are the head chef. Please.
Thank you.
Mine looks better.
So this is definitely more than feet. It just looks better.
I mean,
Oh.
you
Yeah,
can't say
like
that doesn't
under
look
your
good
breath,
right there. I
Yeah.
mean, you know,
So
No competition.
I know. That's what everybody wants.
gotta give the people what they want, Chris. I'd say this probably would feed 6 easily. You'll probably have some
12.
leftovers. Yeah. It fix. Yeah. That's it. We have our baked rigatoni with a arugula salad. Pairing that up with our delicious Chardonnay from the vineyard right outside the kitchen. Anybody have any questions? Ooh.
Feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions.
Yeah, let's chat. We don't get to see people anymore, so.
This is amazing.
Yeah. Wait, so where's it? Where's the chicken go again? I was joking.
Go again.
Hey guys, it looks great. Thank you for
Thank
making something that looks that obviously going to taste so great with the Chardonnay. I think the Chardonnay tastes great. Thank you for making the dish. Kudos to you guys.
Thanks,
Thank
Gary.
Carrie,
You know,
Simon said, could you add mushrooms?
It says-
on paper?
Yeah, totally. If you're gonna add mushrooms in here, I would saute them ahead of time. Yeah, that'd be excellent. I mean, mushrooms and asparagus is a super classic combination. Mushrooms would have been really good in here.
And don't forget to take pictures of your meals and tag us on Instagram and Facebook.
a couple other pairings that go great with the Chardonnay. What do you think? Scallops.
I love scallops. Like
Scallops are always great.
We're gonna have, once we open up, we have a couple different food and wine and food experiences here. One of them being the atelier, where you get to come have lunch with us in the kitchen. And it's gonna be 7 courses, wine and food, and we've done a couple test runs on it. Scallops, I think, are actually gonna be the go-to pairing with the Chardonnay. I just love,
the creaminess of Chardonnay, it helps balance with the,
and the natural sweetness of the scallop with the malolactic
I mean, I would say my 2 favorite scallops and then like a creamy pasta dish. Those are 2 perfect with an oaky or Chardonnay with cheesy. Next week's Quarantine Kitchen.
Next week we're doing fried chicken. Yeah. It'll be fried chicken with our rosé of Grenache.
The Fly by Seat of Our Pants rosé Grenache, which would be really fun.
We're doing all sorts of
food packages.
We've been doing the couple different pastas and the beef bourguignon for a couple weeks. We added some pizzas into the mix this week, which we're super stoked about.
Which are fabulous.
Yeah, we've been eating a lot of
Mason,
pizza.
I'm gonna get fat.
I was doing great until we got the pizza.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, it's awesome. We can't wait to get everybody here and have everything in the rear view and go forward and have some pizza parties.
Yeah, the Make Quarantine Kitchen collection for the wines on the website, so feel free to order those. What else are we missing?
Are we doing deacon thing this week?
We're doing yoga on Monday too. Look on the website for that. I'll send everybody an email tomorrow with all the stuff that's coming up. We also have the Make-A-Wish Foundation packages online. What's that?
Yeah.
So to let you guys know, we partnered with Make-A-Wish Foundation. We are scheduled to do a dinner with them in June, and it's looking like we might need to postpone it. So in the meantime, we partnered with them on offering wine and food packages where a portion of the proceeds goes directly towards Make-A-Wish to grant wishes for kids in need. So feel free. We just added that to the chat, so if you guys want to check out that and help raise money to grant children's wishes. And Dina, I know fried can be scary for some people at home to do. Shane is definitely going to be explaining how to do fried chicken at home in an easy way.
If you guys are going to do it with us, I would recommend ordering, if Amazon will get it to you before next Saturday, a candy thermometer, because that's the hardest part about fried chicken, is making sure your oil is at the right temperature. So a thermometer that goes up to at least 350 would be a great tool to have for next week. But if not, we'll show you some tips and tricks on how to kind of figure out where your oil's at. And
Hey, Shane. Shane, I have a question for you. This is Kerry Gott.
Yes, sir.
So in your world, with all the chef and kitchens and all the world in Sonoma County and chefs and staff and stuff, how's everybody doing? With so many kitchens shut and staff not working.
Yeah.
How is everybody doing, and how are they being supported?
It's scary times, definitely, for the restaurant industry. The restaurants I came from earlier in the year, Chalkboard and Brass Rabbit, are doing a lot of takeout. Seems like most places have started doing that. I know my family's tried to support as much as we can. A lot of places have really simple pickups. You open your back window, they set it in, there's no contact.
Which we've been doing. Yeah,
we've been doing here as well. I urge everybody to support their wineries, support their restaurants, because it's tough times right now, for sure.
Is there any local fun? I mean, it can't just be focused on kitchen people or the staff at the back of the house, but are there any local things that are being done to make sure that everybody's healthy and has enough food? And it can't just be the kitchens at restaurants. I mean, it's broader than that. What is some of the stuff that we can donate to help?
Yeah, we're doing.
The Redwood Empire Food Bank is doing some amazing programs in Sonoma County, and they provide in normal times they provide 5,000 fresh meals a week to seniors and people in Sonoma County, and now it's just amazing how that's scaled to super heights. So the Redwood Empire Food Bank is a great resource for people locally, and I'm sure around the country there are food banks that all of you could support, which would be great.
Thank you.
And Perry, we can definitely look into doing a future like chicken marsala quarantine kitchen. Maybe we'll do that in June and add that to the lineup.
Cool.
Yeah. And any other meals that you guys want to try or learn how to make, feel free to send us an email and we can definitely try to add them to our lineup.
Yeah, I mean, who knows how long this will be going? So, we're definitely open for some ideas. I know Simon wanted to do gnocchi, so we're going to be doing gnudi, which is similar. It's like a ricotta gnocchi. We're going to do that at the end of the month, end of next month. But if you have any requests, for sure, just email us. I'd love to collaborate.
And we are planning on doing this after shelter in place is lifted. We're thinking we're going to do it once a month. We're brainstorming what day and time would be best. So if anyone has any recommendations on if like a Sunday night would work well, or Sunday afternoon, or a weekday, feel free to send us an email, and we're open to any and all suggestions.
Cool.
All right.
Does everybody want to show us their dish?
Yeah. Yeah, show us your dish. Show us what you're eating.
Sharon, that looks great.
Awesome as always.
Kim.
Joe Mallet.
Hales, that looks
Peter.
great.
Look at it. We're eating with the Butler family in
I
the
love it.
dining room.
That's cool, man. Oh, the Minnesota walls, that looks great. Chulix, where you go? Oh, there you go. Excellent.
And I would assume Jill and Scott are there.
Yeah, the Citron, my in-laws are there.
New Jersey in the house.
Yeah. Great.
I would show our dishes, but we're cleaned out. We already ate everything.
Good. That's good.
Did you drink all the wine too?
Oh yeah, we're on our third bottle. We love it.
Good, good. Those are called depletions.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah,
Good job,
Mark. Nice.
Hey guys, thank you very much. I really enjoyed it. Let's forge ahead and let's hope this ends relatively soon and your industry from the restaurant side of the world gets healthy again. The vineyards are getting ready to grow another great crop of grapes. Here we go. Thank you.
Thanks, Terry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye
Thanks,
now.
Terry.
We'll see you next week.
Bye. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers, cheers, cheers.